but going after the deer and the rabbits, because that was a very defensible and a profitable moat or a sector to serve. In March 2016, Google and Accel came out with a report, and they published this in Bangalore. So they call this the India opportunity, the $50 billion opportunity for India. And there are some very interesting aspects in this report, which says that for the first time in the history of software, by 2020, SMB SaaS revenue will overtake enterprise SaaS revenue. Now this is phenomenal. All of us who have been tracking software will know that enterprise software revenue is always much, much bigger than SMB software. This has never happened in the history of software. This is Google's report. We were not able to articulate it like this, but this is what we were doing. The other lesson that I would like to share was, if you are a startup, right, how do you get invited to the party? Like, so there are so many startups in B2B in India or worldwide, but we always keep hearing the big names, right? And how do you crack that and go into the big league, right? So how do you get invited to play in the big league? And this is again a lesson that I learned during my Zoho days. I was building a product line called Manage Engine. We were competing with HP, IBM, CA, and IBM Tivoli, CA Unicenter, and HP. So we had a lot of independent products which were competing in the SMB space. But when you look at all of them together, we had the breadth to go against the HP and the IBM. So we thought we are not fighting at their league. We were always pushed to the small niche player fighting with the WhatsApp, like all the smaller players. So each one of our products was fighting different competition, and we were not being spoken of at the same league. That's when I thought, okay, one of my learnings there was, how do you position against the big four, right? So we came up with the marketing campaign saying 90% of the cost of the big four at 10% of the price. So we started positioning against the big four, and Gartner started writing about us, and slowly when the story, you know that your story is working, marketing story is working, when I met a Forrester analyst from Germany, and he was introducing Forrester to me. He was saying, hey Girish, I am Peter from Forrester. We do 90% of what Gartner does at 10% of the cost. So, but the key learning here was, if you are playing in a market, like let's say if you're playing in the TV market, right? We should be a Samsung or a Sony or an LG, not a TCL or a Haier, right? So because when you don't get into that leadership mode, you don't get invited to the deals. In B2B, it's very, very important, because every B2B market is not a winner take all, and there is always the users will evaluate 2 or 3 different software before choosing one. But if you're not in that short list, you're not going to get many of these calls to participate, right? So that was the learning there. So in fact, I don't know how many of you know the Freshdesk Zendesk fight. I'll tell you that. Okay, 2 people, 3, 4. Okay, so this happened in 2011. But I'll tell you the backstory is, so we were like any other startup, constantly hustling for business. Like on Twitter, one of my support guys would constantly look at customers who are unhappy with Zendesk, and we would ask them to try Freshdesk. I think they were pretty upset with that. They thought, oh, this is some small fish from India, will die. But when Accel invested $1 million in us, and we announced that on December 1, on December 2nd, on Twitter, there was an analyst who actually called us a ripoff of Zendesk. Now, I'm not going to give the whole story, but the CEO of Zendesk actually called us a ripoff, and the reason for that was our name also had desk in it. So their name was Zendesk and our name was Freshdesk. That's why we were called a ripoff. So what we did was, we decided not to fight back on Twitter, but we created a website called ripoffornot.org, and so if you read that website, you will know that we actually went through, this is again a big learning for me, was not to be trigger happy and go and fight. If we had fought on Twitter, it would have been nothing but like a street fight with no value. This was a phenomenal defining moment it's a pivotal turning point in the history of Freshdesk, because at that time Zendesk had 20,000 customers, we had 200 customers. But by attacking us, they put us on the same plane, and from that point onwards, we never let go of that slot. Every PR article that we did, we made sure that if somebody is writing about Zendesk, they'll write about freshness. Somebody is writing about freshness, they'll write about Zendesk. So we latched on to that leadership slot through that small opening that was given to us, and stayed the course. Today we have 92,000 customers, they have 130. Earlier this year, we launched Fresh Sales. Again, we launched a CRM product. I would be happy to take questions later on how to pick ideas or how we came across this idea also. But we had 70 buses all decked up with ads like this. So somebody saying, I blew 200K setting up Salesforce, and they are cursing at Fresh Sales, and then we say, sorry, we didn't launch earlier. So this campaign happened during Dreamforce. Like 70 buses were running around San Francisco for 2 months. Pretty much everybody in San Francisco had seen. I checked, I asked my Uber driver, have you seen those yellow buses? He said, oh, Fresh Sales. So it was great. I think, again, the reason is you have to understand that Salesforce is the big gorilla in the room. And there are hundreds of CRM players. Like, we cannot afford to just be yet another CRM player who's sitting in the corner and not being noticed. If you want to be taken seriously, you go after the biggest. And if your product, again, the most important point which I'm not telling you here is the product has to be world class and being able to compete there. So if you are able to launch as an alternative to that dominant leader, you will get invited to the party, right? So when people have to see, like if I can ask you now, name 8 alternative to Salesforce, how many of you can name 8 or 10? Nobody can. You can probably do 1 or 2. Everybody knows Microsoft Dynamics. So probably you'll say 2 or 3, but that's the whole problem that I'm saying is the lesson. If you are doing a startup, you need to know how to get invited to the party. You need to do remarkable things to stand out and make noise. PR is a very, very important misunderstood, or people think PR means putting out a press release that is boring and they don't spend enough money. Most startups that I know don't spend enough on PR, but it's about having the ability to tell a remarkable story and take a bold stance and let people watch and sit up and take notice. If you are a startup, it's not okay to just stay somewhere quiet and build it and hope that they will come. They will not come. You have to create a remarkable product and make some noise and go against the best and make sure that people sit up and take notice. Okay.
So I would like to ask as to how do you build such a world-class product, given that there's innovation happening everywhere and there's such big companies involved in this space. How do you come up with these innovations in terms of product?
So I think this is what I've been doing for 10 years before starting Freshdesk. So again, as I said, a lot of talent in India for technology. So product management, UI, UX, interaction design, those are marketing. These are the harder to acquire skill sets in India. The answer is you have to set your benchmarks high. And I will also tell you that I have met startups where somehow, because the founder is a tech person, they don't give enough importance to the user experience. They don't give enough importance to design or marketing. If you can clearly tell an Indian website versus a US website, right? That should not be the case. People should not be able to find where is this company from. Like, we have to set the benchmark high, and I think that is possible.
So I wanted to go back to your fresh sales story. When you have multiple paths you can take, how do you decide which one to take? So you have multiple competing ideas, and how do you decide where to deploy your resources?
Okay, so see, for me, CRM was always something special, because customer support and sales, when you're dealing with the customer, every team needs a 360-degree view of the customer. So one of the things, I'll tell you this reason why we built Fresh Sales. We wanted to do whatever, like any other startup today, we wanted to do email campaigns. We wanted to track user behavior. We wanted to, our salespeople wanted to track emails to see when prospects opened that. So we had to buy like 5 different tools. Like we had Marketo for marketing automation. We had MailChimp for one-off campaigns. We had our own event tracking for user behavior analytics. So there were at one point there were 5 different tools, and we had an in-house developer who was sitting and integrating. We wanted to take out Marketo and put